infographics, a great way of visually representing a lot of data. As you can hear, hi, I'm Dr. Anya. I would like to focus, like I said, on infographics today. So what are infographics and why are they useful? Infographics are useful because they are visual representation, usually as a one-pager, a one-page visual, one-page sort of image, graphic, summarizing a lot of data or a lot of text. Why is it important? Our customers rarely have really high attention span. In fact, our attention span has been reduced to minimum. We tend to not pay attention for a long period of time, and it's hard for us to actually focus on one task at the same time. Therefore, when your busy customers tend to have a lot on their plate, like they do now, regardless of what weird memes on social media may be saying, we actually are super busy right now because we have to work remotely and have children a lot of times in tow, or have to do things that usually would be done quickly face-to-face. We have to spend time online doing those things. Or, outside of coronavirus, outside of crisis, we are also busy. There are also a lot of stimuli to which we're exposed, like ads, all over the place. So it's hard for us to focus on one thing at a time. So infographics are a great way. Sorry for the shakiness. Great way of summarizing data and large amount of data, large amount of text into easy to comprehend visual. Okay, so it makes life of your customer easier, and therefore makes it more likely for them to better understand it. So there are different approaches to creating a infographic. There are different approaches to visualizing your data, and I am not a graphic designer, so I cannot teach you that, but there are just general ways to simplify the flow of information. And the first one would be a list, right? The list is often used to support an argument. So basically steps in supporting an argument, and I have here a cheat sheet to make sure that I stay on track, as I sometimes don't tend to stay on track. Next, comparison is a great alternative when you're trying to compare options, right? Pros and cons of different options. Maybe which product to use, right? Here are the pros, here are the cons, and so on. Next, flowchart. Well, what it says, it's a visual representation of sort of step by step, how you should get to the end point, right? So maybe in skincare could be, starting point where you want to be, or where you should start to get to the point where you want to be, right? One after another. Next, visual architecture is the approach of visualizing a tremendous amount of data and textual data. So instead of giving somebody a book, you can sort of summarize it in one place. And the goal of all infographics is to summarize. And next, map. So you can have a map of coronavirus, the United States, and for example, map is used a lot of times right now in the outbreak of coronavirus, where you can see the hotspot, where the hotspots are right now, where they are predicted in the future, the deaths, the number of positive cases, and so on. The map is also really good when we're outside of finding coronavirus to show demographics, maybe certain segments of your target market, right? Timeline, chronological display of events, so what happened historically to arrive at that point. Timeline is used by some of the skincare producers to show their expertise, how long they've been how long they've been in business, and sort of the history, the launches of products, their development. So that's a great way to actually do different types of about a company, is to use a timeline approach, which is then visual representation rather than textual. And finally, data visualization. When you have a lot of data, you can have charts, pie charts, histograms, and so on in one pagers to summarize data. So again, infographics are a graphical way of representing a lot of data text in a simple to understand format. I would recommend using visuals that we are familiar with. So a lot of times we can talk about things that people are familiar with. So you can show a picture of, for example, a football field, and if you want to represent how much space something is taken up, so you can show, okay, that's about half the size of a football field, and you can then show it visually. That way people can better understand data, which is something that usually people have trouble understanding. Or maybe not so much understanding, I don't want to offend anybody, but having an idea how much of something there actually is. Okay, so infographics, great way to talk about data and visual and textual information for your customers to have a sort of an idea what is happening at once. And finally, now that I put my kid away, the last thing I want to mention, that it is important that you remember your persona. And if you haven't seen the video on persona, I recommend that you do. Remember who you are creating it for. Remember your target market and how it is supposed to be useful to your customer. At the end of the day, you are creating it for a customer and not just create yet another stimulus to bug your customer with. So keep in mind that you're trying to benefit ultimately the customer while at the same time meeting the objectives that you have for your social media plan. All right, that is it for today. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.